Respect my authority!
Let's get ready to
They're the ones at the moment, and Cody Miller in 5.
And once he hits the water, Adam Peaty just flies. The stroke rate is so fast, fingertipping the world record line at the moment. Let's see where he is at the 50-metre mark. He is below it by 8/100ths of a second, 26.61. Good underwater then.
Hello humans, welcome to the M Word, the Manx Sports podcast brought to you by Martin, that's me.
And Matt.
That's him over there. Hello Matthew.
Hi.
On Zoom once again.
Yeah.
We continue to be socially distant.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
I miss you like it. Miss it.
I'm sure Emma doesn't miss me coming around all the time.
No, she doesn't, in fairness. No, you're right. Welcome back, everyone. First of all, just want a quick shout out to Billboards, our sponsor, as usual, digital advertising. Much appreciate what they do and help us with. So you want to get your name and your brand out there, go and see billboards.im. I'm squinting away here, actually, because I've managed to extend my cables to actually record over Zoom and in the garden and the sun. So now I've actually started. It's probably not the greatest idea because I'm squinting away here. We're joined by Lee Holland anyway, Ironman Swimming. Welcome, Lee.
Afternoon, gents.
Thanks for your time. As I always say at most of the start of podcasts, we've got loads to dig into, and then 2 hours later, we're still digging in. But just for those who heard the clip at the beginning there, that was a clip from the Rio Olympics. Adam Peaty, who I'm sure most of you know, is a fairly decent swimmer, and winning the 100 backstroke, and I think it was a world record if I remember rightly. So I thought that might just set the scene for Lee, who's obviously well known on the arm for swimming. But perhaps we go back to the beginning, if that's okay, Lee, and start with the traditional question of whether you're a come over Manx, or Manx is the hills.
I think you can probably tell from my accent that I'm not from around here. But I was a come over 9 years ago, and it kind of got out of hand. Do you know what I mean? And we're still here.
Yeah. Well, all the work you do with the sports over here, I'm sure you're considered Manx now, anyway, even with that Scouse accent.
Some might say that. I'm not sure at all. But
so, whereabouts in Liverpool were you brought up?
I was born in a place called Crosby, and then we moved a little bit up the road to a place called Hightown, which is about halfway between Liverpool and Southport, sort of north. It's the north border of Liverpool before you go into Southport and Lancashire, really. I lived there from right through to the age of 19 when I went to university. At the same time, me nan passed away and I got left some money, so I actually spent that money on buying a house in Garston, which is South Liverpool. Yeah. So that's sort of where I lived after me younger years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And those early years in Liverpool, obviously schooling, I assume, in Liverpool and sport, inevitably, certainly around that area. Well, certainly football, but many sports as part of life. Was it in the early ages? Your early ages?
For me, not really. I wasn't a particularly sporty kid. As I was on my way to growing towards the 6'5" I am now, I had zero coordination. I was very, very uncoordinated. I used to play goalpost at school football, that sort of thing. I just wasn't really very good at anything because I always put that down to, I laugh about it, but I always put that down to the fact that my body didn't know where it was. The ball was passed and then my foot would go, do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. I was desperate to be one of the cool kids that could play all the sports and all that. But it just wasn't me in my early days. So my mum and dad got me into swimming because they said it was the only sport I could do without hurting myself. That's where we started.
And I should have asked earlier, are you a red or a blue?
I'm a red.
Oh, that's all right. I thought we might have to end the podcast. We're all reds here, so we're all family. It's fine. So what kind of age were you starting to hit the pool?
Do you know, I learned to swim when I was quite young, but I only started competitively swimming at the age of 14. And that was because I went to like a local club, and it was more what I'd say like a teaching club. They were very, very good at the skills, the technical stuff, but there wasn't really anybody fast there, so there was no one to race against. So I was the best of a really small pond. And then actually, it was only when a neighbour of ours lived around the corner said, "Oh, you should come and swim at Bootle because they're a bit better." At this time, I was growing. I was probably, I'd say, 13 at this point, and I was turning into from a little fat kid to quite a long, lean, sort of athletic look and shape. And within 6 months, I'd got a trial for City of Liverpool. So it just exploded through a little bit of training, you know.
What City of Liverpool is that? Like the head region for the area, or?
Yes, City of Liverpool's the city team, if you like. So all of you'd have, you know, your Bootle North Liverpool, your Crosby Swimming Club, your Liverpool Penguins, all of the regional clubs, if you like, feed into City of Liverpool. So that's where the best from each of those clubs come together to train at a serious level. And like I say, to go from joining a smaller club to 6 months later being swimming with City of Liverpool was unheard of. They were like, "Hold on, this lad's only been swimming 5 minutes." Do you know what I mean? And I didn't have any of the skills.
You're just naturally good at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just long. You know, I had size 12 feet when I was 12.
Oh right. Wow.
So I was just a big unit. Do you know what I mean? Actually, it's funny. I tell a story. The coach that I ended up working with, Holland, he was doing the trial when I went to City of Liverpool, but he wouldn't be my first coach. He was like the head coach. So I walked in, and I walked into this pool, Westminster Road. It was a dingy little Victorian pool, and my dad, who I'm 6'5", and my dad's a good few inches taller than me, makes me look little, ducks his head to come through the doorway, and the coach's eyes, and I recognise that now. The coach's eyes lit up, and he went, "I didn't even need to see you swim. We'll have him." Do you know what I mean? Because he's gonna be a monster, this kid. And he basically said to me, "I can teach you the skills. You've got all the weapons there," and I went from there.
And at that stage, were you doing all the kind of strokes?
Do you know, when I started, I thought I was going to be a breaststroker, because I was relatively good at it, but I got a bit of a knee injury, so I ended up having to lay off the breaststroke, and then I developed into, with having big feet and long limbs, the butterfly was a decent sort of level. My butterfly kick was very strong, and in them days you could go as far as you like underwater. So now you're only allowed to go to 15 metres underwater on the butterfly kicking, whereas in them days on the butterfly you could do a full length, bar one stroke. So I was good at that, and then they brought in the 15-metre rule, and then I went on to backstroke, and I ended up as a backstroke swimmer. So that 50-metre, is that at the start as well as the turns? Yes, off the dive and off each turn, you're allowed to go up to 15. Your head must have broken the surface by 15 metres.
Why was that brought in? Like, is it more beneficial to be under the water for as long as possible then? So everyone was trying to do the full length.
Yeah, they were trying to. They were, well, on a safety level, I think, because people, you know, in a 50-metre pool. Yeah, people were swimming 45 metres of it underwater, coming up, taking a stroke, and then going again. And if you look back far enough on like the YouTube videos and that, you'll see swimmers that were literally doing 30 or 40 metres underwater and then coming up into the race. But they're putting themselves in massive oxygen debts, and there were people, you know, falling foul on a health level because it's not good for you, you know. Well, and it gets away from. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, you're right, it gets away from what swimming is. Well, some might argue that if you're underwater, you're swimming, but yeah, it seems to get away from what swimming's about, which is being on the surface of the water, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes away from the, there's no separation in strokes then.
Yeah,
you're not a good backstroker or a good fly swimmer, you're just a good kicker.
Yeah, you know, you're a diver, that's what you are.
Pretty much,
yeah, you're a snorkeler, that's what you are. So then, when you then getting into the city of Liverpool, and then is that starting to take you to national level? Is it at that time?
Yeah, I was at City of Liverpool for 6 months, and then I went to my first. Well, actually the first year I qualified for British Champs. British Champs used to be in the summer, in like end of July, early August. And the first year that I qualified, you had to wait to qualifying time to do that. But the first year, we'd actually had a holiday booked. Because when we booked the holiday 12 months earlier, I wasn't even in the swimming club. So to have gone from there to, you know, I jumped out the pool and I was, that was great. I think it was at Northern Counties. It was the last possible chance to get the qualifying time to go to the British Champs. And I got out the pool and everyone was like, oh, well done, fantastic, you know. You can go to Nationals. And I went, what's Nationals? And they all looked at me like, is he mad? He said, wait, what, are you joking? I went, no,
next week.
we were on our way to Yugoslavia, and I went, sorry, you know, we were there. I don't know if it was Yugoslavia or Greece or one of them. I used to go there quite a bit. But yeah, so that paid.
So you didn't go? Did you go on a holiday then?
We went on holiday the first year, and then I went back the next year and actually made final. And the year after that, I was winning medals.
So age is it in age categories? The age you were at then? Or is it
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the first year I would have competed as a 14-year-old. The year after, so the year I went, I was 15, and I made the final. But it was the year in then, so I sort of a bit more savvy, knew the sport, knew what it all meant. Yeah. And then, like I say, the year after that, we went into the medals. So yeah, it was still a very, very quick transition from picking the sport up.
Yeah, 2.5 years later. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it upset a lot of people as well, because they were the guys that had been in since they were 8 and 9 year old. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they're like, who's this kid's just rocked up and all of a sudden he's overtaken people, you know, that got up people's noses, but sort of set a precedent then, do you know what I mean? And that's how I learned.
And how did you find that, like, looking back over that first period of getting in the pool and finding out actually you were really this good? Was it something that drove you, or were you just kind of doing it for finding some form of fitness and, you know, something to do in that sense? Or was it kind of like from your first go in a pool, you were like, oh, this is a passion or something, like, you know, something you'd want to continue yourself? Or like, just looking back, how did you kind of reflect and look on that early experience?
It's funny, you know, I didn't know I was good, and I didn't know, I didn't get, you know, how different this story was. I didn't understand that it was different from anybody else's story until you know, we talk about it now, and I talk about it with my athletes, and you go, actually, do you know what? I can understand why people weren't so welcoming to me and those sort of things. And one thing I will say is when I first started, I was so much bigger than everybody else. I was 6 foot. I'm 6'5" now. I was probably 6'4" at the age of like 14.
Wow! Right.
So I was enormous in comparison. And I use this as I use this as a lot of the time when I'm telling my athletes. I'll say, do you know what? I was the kid that didn't have to work for it. But I tell you what, it caught me up at about 16 when everybody else was 6 foot plus as well. And then I realised, shit, I'm going to have to do some work here. Do you know what I mean? And I went from natural talent. You know, you've seen that video with the little rugby player who's about 4 stone and everything, everyone else just battering everyone. I was that kid. Yeah. And then it only came to a point where everybody else started, you know, puberty caught everybody up. And by the time you're 16, 17, then it becomes about the work. You know, and I realised, God, I'm going to have to do something here, because I've been floating along so much on natural ability and natural talent that sooner or later it's going to hit you. And it's a great story for me to tell my athletes now, you know, those that are either the little ones waiting to grow or the big kids already, you know.
And the 17, 18, when I suppose you're starting to see that level out, you consciously, was that something you thought back then? Or was it only in hindsight you look back and go, oh, you know, the people...
Oh, no, I knew they were catching me. Well, it became apparent because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to do something here, because I went from being 1 or 2 seconds clear And then all of a sudden it was coming down to hundreds of seconds, and you're thinking it's not as easy to knock these times down like we used to, you know. It was a bit of a shock to the system, really.
And in those days, training-wise, were you training twice a day? Because I know that's kind of certainly observer of swimming. It certainly is something that used to, I don't know whether it still happens now, people thought it used to be train before, you know, work, college, uni, wherever you're doing, train in the evenings. That's something you were doing back then? Yeah,
we train twice a day, for 4 weekdays a week, and then we train once on the Wednesday, and we train once on Saturday morning.
Right.
Now
was
that's
that all pool work, or did you do gym work back then?
A lot of it was pool work. Yeah, it was majority pool work. But my coach, the coach that I ended up with ultimately, Colin, he was very much about. Very, very clever man, and very much about doing things differently. It wasn't about just smashing meters into you because that's what everyone else is doing. Because then it become a sponsored swim. It wasn't about who was best; it was who was doing the most meters. So we'd joke and we'd say that like the likes of our rivals in like Stockport or Manchester would say they do more meters in the showers than we do in the pool. but actually, the time spent. And we'd spend a lot of time in those energy systems. We wouldn't be, you know, we used to say, you know, we're not looking for garbage yardage. We're not looking for meters for meters' sake. The meters have got to mean something. And actually, that sort of gave me a real... That's how I shaped my coach. I mean, I know we'll talk about coaching in a minute, but that's sort of partially why my coaching has been seen as so different from what people have seen before on the Isle of Man, because I learned from somebody who wasn't afraid to not do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And it was a great time. I mean, the top squad at Liverpool, there was 22 swimmers in it, and to get in that top squad, you had to have a British medal. It wasn't even like be at British Championship level. You had to have a medal to get in the top squad.
Yeah, right.
And that's unheard of now, you know.
Yeah.
It was incredible times.
And are those qualities in regard to the swimming, is that obviously, I guess it's quality, quantity, type mentality, and then a lot of that work also around, I guess, improving the stroke and the technique, because I understand that's a fairly important part of the whole process.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like you say, the way we look at it now, there's a lot of technical parts, a lot of technical little tweaks and stuff you can make to the strokes. I'm not a big quantity man. Even the guys that I coach at triathlon and Ironman level, I have to pull them back on what they think they should be doing in terms of meters, because I am a firm believer that all that's doing is putting its mileage on your body.
Yeah, putting stress on. Yeah,
and unnecessary in most cases. You know, if you're going to be doing an 8-hour race, and the first hour of it, if you can bring that down to 55 minutes, I mean, we're talking Ironman now, but if you can bring it down to 55 minutes, but that person's going to be absolutely busted. I can teach you how to still swim for an hour, but do it so much more effectively and come out dead fresh for the bike. Yeah. That's the way, you know, that's the sort of the message that we end up with trying to put across, you know. But back then, I mean, there was a lot more technical in what we were doing at Liverpool as opposed to the other programs. They were very much about, it's got to be 7,000 meters a session, and they would do every session. Every day they'd do 2 sessions. Right. So we were starting out of this quality, not quantity, and now you look and that would still have been seen as quite a lot compared to what we do on the Isle of Man.
Right. So then when you said you compete at national level, talk us through some of those results and how they were and how it was. Representing the city of Liverpool as well.
I mean, that was an extremely proud time to be part of the City of Liverpool team. You know, I thought I'd made it when I got my City of Liverpool jersey. In fact, it's probably still in my mum and dad's house now. You know, that first City of Liverpool tracksuit, God, I remember that. I remember that.
Tracksuit, Scouser, sounds unusual.
Honestly, that still puts hairs up on the back of my neck.
Right,
thinking about the day I got given that tracksuit. And I was listening to your interview with sorry, my
all right.
my mind's just gone blank there. With Mark Robinson.
Yeah,
He was talking about the that jersey thing. I
was
listening to that.
Passing on the All Blacks. Yeah.
Yes, and I know it's not the same thing, but I totally understand that idea of that pride and actually getting there. Almost that putting that tracksuit on that first time was just amazing. But from there we went on, and then, like I say, I swam, became national champion.
Right.
We had some real good.
At what?
We had some
light swim and length and like distance.
Yeah.
Sorry,
200 meters backstroke was my event.
Right.
We had 3 lads in Liverpool and district that were actually the top 3 in Britain between us. So I remember one year there was the 3 of us came 1, 2 and 3 at Liverpool and district, Lancashire Championships, Northwest Championships, and the National Championship, all in different orders. And it was like hundreds of seconds in or out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time it was one way or the other. But like I say, it just drove us forward. And we were all good mates, but at the same time, it was a really, really positive drive. And, you know, you see like the sports on the Isle of Man, and you see one athlete that's so far in front of everyone else, and you can understand why they don't.
You need that
competition,
don't you?
Yeah. Exactly. So, like you say, I got to a point where I was representing GB at a junior level. I actually represented GB once at a senior level in Charleroi in Belgium at the European meet. I remember swimming. I actually swam in the lane next to the world record holder at the time.
Right.
I can't remember his surname, but he was Romanian. He was called Dragon.
Right.
And that was enough for me. I was like, oh my God. And he was about 7 foot tall as well. He was enormous, this fella.
Yeah. What age were you then?
I was probably 18.
Right.
18 and 19. And to be honest, there was a couple of things. I had a couple of injuries. I hurt my elbow on a backstroke finish, hitting the wall too hard. You know, finishing on the wall too hard, and popped my elbow out. I had a couple of shoulder things and those sort of things. And then, like you say, when I then went on to university, I was still competing, but real life had to take over a little bit, you know. And I ended up at a place where I couldn't do everything I was doing with my training and the university. And I discovered beer and women as well, you know. So it was just the natural progression. But I managed to keep competing through to the age of like 21 when I finished university, and I was still competing at a high level. I held the British record for 200 metre backstroke for the time.
Okay.
During that period, and then, like you say, really that was the where my swimming career had to turn into my coach. Well, it sort of accidentally turned into my coaching career, really, when I finished university.
Was there a period there where you had a difficult choice or decision on that, where you kind of maybe wanted to try and go further, or as you said, did you think, okay, maybe those guys are that next step above what I would need to put in to be able to do that and get there? Or was it a case of, yeah, I can quite happily kind of keep what I'm doing and follow this path that's, as you said, naturally kind of progressing?
Do you know, I still don't think I knew where I was going. I never thought I was going to be a coach. I really, this was, you know, you'll laugh when I say this, but it really was an accident in getting into coaching. I was competing, and I was still dead set on, you know, I want to go as far as I can. When I got to university age, I was actually offered a scholarship to go to Denver, Colorado University, but they wanted me to go a year earlier than I would have gone to university over here. And I mean, this will sound, it sounds silly. I could have burnt a pot noodle back then. I didn't have a clue. I was too well looked after. And you know, some people say, "Oh, listen, you sounds like he's dead spoiled." And I wasn't spoiled at all, but I had a lot done for me. I'm an only child. My mum and dad did a lot for me at that age, and I just wasn't ready to. It's one thing to go to university, and I would have been more than happy to have gone to, you know, my three choices were Loughborough, Stirling, or Liverpool. You know, and I said, I can go to the other end of the country and I can come home in 4 hours if I need to. If I go to Denver, I'm not getting home for a week, you know, or days. And that was just that little bit too far. But then I look at it now and I go, do you know what? If I'd have made that call, I probably wouldn't have got into the job that I did. I wouldn't have fell on those chances. I know we talk about luck and chance and all those words. I don't like to talk about luck. I like to think you make your own, and you take the chances that become available to you. But I look back and I go, if I'd have done that, I wouldn't ever have ended up in the job I'm in. Probably wouldn't have met my wife. And I think, do you know what? Even if I'd have gone there and I'd have ended up as a top level, you know, made that next step and swum at Olympics and that sort of level, at the time, there was no money in the sport. It was very much an amateur sport. And I look back and I go, what would have that done for me? Because I know people that have been to the Olympics, come back, never got back in the pool again. Absolutely fell out of love with the sport because there wasn't anything more. It's not like the infrastructure of the sport like it is now. You know, people I fell out with the sport because there was nothing more for them. It's like, right, well, I've completed it now. I think, and I often say, you know, part of the fact that I didn't make that top absolute elite level is probably what drives me to keep doing it day in, day out with the athletes I work with now. And I'm grateful for that in a sense.
You often find, I think, as well, when you do a lot of sport younger or in a sport younger, or maybe I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I did a lot of cycling when I was younger. And so just a point where, not that I got to any level, but there's a point where you just kind of get sick of it, I guess. And maybe you talk about those Olympic athletes where you're taught that's all it's been all your life. And there's a point where you just kind of walk away where obviously you transition quickly into coaching and kept that love for the sport, where certainly when I look at cycling, I fell out of love with that for a long time because of just, it was a constant, it was there all the time, I guess. So changing that tact into coaching maybe at an earlier stage helped you keep the love for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I finished university at the age of 21, and I'd actually applied to do a PGCE after my degree, which was to go into teaching, because I thought, still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, but the one thing I knew was sport. And I thought, well, I suppose I could be a PE teacher. It's a job for life. You know, there's worse things I could be doing.
Yeah.
So I applied for the PGCE, and then it was at the National League final for swimming, and City of Liverpool was swimming against 8 other teams, but City of Liverpool was swimming against City of Salford, and that was probably the big main rival then. And the head coach at Salford knew that I was his top lad's main threat, so he always said hello and that, and we worked together on GB teams and stuff. And he says to me, you finishing uni in in a couple of months. I said, yeah. He said, well, have you got anything lined up? I said, no. I said, I'm going to do my secondary teaching, going to do PGCE. He said, well, we've got a job coming up. Do you fancy hearing me out? I said, well, I'll hear what you've got to say. Do you know what I mean? I said, hang on, coaching for Salford. That was like was like a Liverpool player going coaching at Everton. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, ooh. I said, you're trying to turn me here. He said, you can have the job on one condition. You let Alex win this on your back. I went, fucking forget it. But no, I went down, heard what they had to say, and actually they offered me a full-time role for when I finished university. Okay. So I knew I was coming out into that role. Yeah, so right. It was, like you say, I got that on the back of what I was doing as a swimmer, not as, he didn't want to see me degree certificates or know what modules I was doing at uni or anything like that. It was about what I was doing as an athlete. And was that role all swimming orientated or PE in general? No, it was. I was the assistant swimming coach, and an assistant in the swimming development as well. So it was like assistant swimming coach, assistant swimming development officer, and that role was all one. So there was a little bit of office admin work, and then there was the majority of it was coaching. And at that young, because I suppose a young, not a young age, but youngish to be coaching people, etc., and quite a step to them becoming. I had a similar conversation when we chatted to Claire at netball, kind of that leader role position. You're just comfortable in that straight away. Something that came naturally. Do you know what? I loved it. I loved it from day one, and I think I was extremely lucky. The job at Salford. I started at the bottom with the babies, the ones that are just coming out of swimming lessons, and I was very, very lucky that I had five or six really, really naturally gifted kids in that group. And actually, as they progressed, I progressed through the coaching structure with them. With them. So I think looking back, the head coach at Salford there, John, he knew what he was doing with this, because I'd come in as a 21-year-old coaching 10-year-olds. They looked at me like a big brother type figure. Yeah. And then I was there for 6 years. So by the time I got to the end of my time at Salford, I was still coaching these same group of kids, but we'd had a 6-year journey. And we had 7 national medalists in that group. Right. We had 2 national gold medalists, British gold medalists in that group. And it wasn't even the top group yet. At Salford, the top group had 7 GB internationals in it. So we were doing big things on that coaching level. But I'm convinced it was because we had that bond, and because I still talk to these kids now. I still see them. They drop me messages. One's a lawyer, one's a paramedic, one's a doctor. It's such a proud moment to look at some of these guys I worked with at a very, very young age. But I was just in love with the sport and what I could do to give back and help young athletes achieve or get some of that benefit that I've had from the sport. It was like putting back. What was it like joining Salford from your old friends over from Liverpool? Were they kind of not giving you any grief about it, or was it sort of tongue-in-cheek banter type of thing? Yeah, no, it was good. They were all pleased for me that I'd got a good job, because it was to walk into a role like that with no real experience. I coached the uni team and I'd done some advanced swimming lesson stuff, but really as a first job, it was a big thing to go into that role. So they were happy for me, but it's not like football swimming. Swimming, they'll have a bit of a dig and a bit of crack with you, but it's not bricky house. No, not quite, not quite that far. So you finish or you're at Salford. What between there and what eventually sort of through the guest 20s? I'm not even sure. When did you come to the island? We've been here. It'll be 9 years in May. Okay. All right. So what happened after Salford? Just other teaching jobs? Was that taking you around the UK? Yeah. Well, actually, I was still living in Liverpool. I was still living in the house in Liverpool because all my mates were there. I was desperately trying to hang on to the university lifestyle. So even though I was working full time, I was still going out on the AL 3 nights a week with my mates who were probably a couple of years younger than me that were still at uni. So I could still legitimately go in the uni bars and that. There's a place on a Monday night that done 70p pints called the Blue Angel or the Raz in town. And then I'd get up because I knew I didn't have morning training on the Tuesday. So Monday night was like, they'll come out Monday. So, yeah, probably burning the candle at both ends there for a little while. But I did 5 years in Salford, and that really cut my teeth as a coach. I won some Young Coach of the Year awards. I got some nice recognition whilst in that role, while still being protected by the fact that I wasn't the head coach, so I wasn't solely responsible for the overall view of how the club's performing. I was just, the nice bits were associated with what I was doing and the hard work I was putting in, but then the bad bits weren't necessarily aimed at me. So that was a nice. It was lovely. And then 5 years after that, I decided I wanted to go on and be a head coach of my own programme. And the job had just come up in Oldham, which was another 10 minutes north. So it was about 50 minutes drive from my house to the Oldham pool. But again, that was nothing because I was doing Salford and back twice a day. So an extra 10, 15 minutes for a better, well, I say a better job. At
progression.
the time it was. Progression. It was a better pay. I was my own boss in terms of what I was doing with the club. So I moved to Oldham and I met my wife there as well. So my wife was working in the gym. When I met her, she was a gym instructor and a personal trainer in the centre that I was working at. So that's where we met. I spent about 9 months trying to persuade myself to ask her out because I thought there's no way she's going to talk to me. and then when I finally started talking to her, I realised there was a language barrier because she couldn't tell what I was saying. I couldn't tell what she was saying. I come back to my mate and went, "This isn't going to work." I said, the lad I was living with at the time, "It's not going to work because we can't understand what each other's saying."
Sounds perfect.
But we got there. We got there in the end. So I was in Oldham 18 months. Then I actually got rung up and asked to apply for the job at City Chester, which the chairman at the time, I had swum with his sons, and he'd obviously seen what we were doing at Oldham. He followed my career, if you will. So when he asked me to apply, I said, "I've only been in Oldham 18 months. I've still got stuff to do here." And he said, "Well, name your price. Do you know what I mean? What's it going to take for us to get there?" And I was like, "Wow." I said, that was significant. So having I'd been going out with Faye 10 months maybe by that point, and we were serious. And I said, "I've been offered a job in Chester." And she said, "Well, that's fucking miles away." I said, "Yeah, well," I said, it is from Oldham. I said, "But we could go back and live in my house in Liverpool." And she went, "Are you asking me to move in with you?" I went, "Well, I'm thinking about it logistically more." Then she went, "Oh, all right then. Well, yeah, sound." So that was how that happened. And then within 2 years from coaching in Chester, I actually got another call. It was almost carbon copy. It was the same call as I'd had from Chester saying, "We'd like you to apply. Coming to the Isle of Man."
All right. Okay.
At the time, Ian Harrop was a big part of the swimming on the Isle of Man, and I actually swam with his lads in Liverpool. Dane came to our squad as a university swimmer, and obviously I was swimming. I was a few years younger than Dane. I was probably 14 when he was 18, sort of thing. So then Ian rings me and says, "We've got the job's come up. Would you be interested?" And
where's the Isle of Man?
Yeah, honestly, I'm ashamed to say I literally did not know where it was. As much as I knew, oh, we had a lad that swam with us, and we used to say stuff about the Isle of Man, and we used to take the piss out of him. But I thought it was down on the bottom by the Isle of Wight. Yeah. So when somebody said it's between here and Ireland and it's only about however many miles away, I was like, really? I said, so anyway, I rings Faye up and I said, babe, I've got to talk to you about something. She went, oh God, what now? I said, I've been offered a job. She went, you're fucking joking, aren't you? She said, but we've only just moved here. We were at this point, we were engaged to be married, and we were living in Liverpool. We were getting married at the Crown Plaza, which was about 5 minutes drive from our house. It was the old Liverpool John Lennon Airport.
Yeah.
And yeah, within 3 months of the wedding, we ended up moving to the Isle of Man. So my mum became the wedding planner, and she had to do all the donkey work on setting them the wedding up. But
had you been here before you accepted the job?
No. I came for the interview, and Ian just said to me, he said, just come over and have a look at the place. And I said, all right, yeah. He said, there's 2 methods of travel. I was like, what? This was blowing me mind. There was flights or there was boats, and I was thinking, this is crazy. I've never been out of it. I'd hardly been out of Liverpool. I'd always said I wasn't going to take a job that wasn't within driving distance of my house. And now we're talking about going somewhere you've got to fly or sail to. So I flew to the Isle of Man from Blackpool on a...
Oh, they're not great flights.
Yeah. I think it was a Manx 2.
Yeah.
But back in them days.
Yeah.
And honest to God, it was there was a curtain holding the between me sat on the front row and the pilot.
Yeah.
And I could hear the pilot telling his mate how drunk he got the night before. I thought, this isn't going to end well here. I'm not coming back. So I got to the Isle of Man and I was just blown away. It was February time, I think, or maybe March. It wasn't great weather, but I could tell straight away. I got a little lap of the island, sort of tour, and we got to the Sound actually, and this is still my favourite place on the Isle of Man is the Sound, because we got there and I got out the car and I'm having a look around and I went, are they seals down there? Now, kid from Liverpool, it was like being at the zoo. I go, oh yeah, that's just a normal thing. So I rung my wife there, and then I went, babe, I said, you've got to come here. I said, you can't. She was like, oh, we're not moving again. Just moved house once. We're getting married in a few months. I went, babe, once you see it, you'll understand. And she come over, and that was deal done. Right. Absolutely deal done.
And that was his national. That was a role of then national head coach for the island.
Yes, yeah, national head coach was the job role, but it was a self-employed position. So my actual work permit when I applied for it was swimming consultancy, and swim coaching. So that was almost a blessing, a green light, if you like, from Isle of Man Swimming Club or Isle of Man Swimming Association to be doing my own private stuff and to create a business around it. And that was where I started doing my own private thing. Initially, I just started out with a few customers, clients, or whatever the correct term is, I suppose. And then before long, it became a fully fledged business, and that was when Nine Beach Swimming was born.
So just to go back to the national side, when you kind of interviewed and talking about coming over here, do you have to present them with your vision of where you want to take the sport here and how you want to develop it? And I assume there was obviously infrastructure here already, but how to take it on to the next level and so forth.
To be honest, the interview process was a really interesting one. It wasn't anything like I'd seen in because I'd almost become a professional interview goer. Over the last few years, I'd had 4 job interviews in 4 years or whatever. But they were very. It was a very different way of interviewing. They were very much about wanting to hear what would I do in in given situation rather than what do I see Isle of Man Swimming Club be. At the time, the two gentlemen, which I'll be forever grateful to for giving me the chance, were Clive Parrish and Basil Bielich.
Basil, I work with Basil.
Oh right,
and his Clive's daughter works at the same place. The small world.
Yeah, it is a very small island, isn't it? But so Clive was the chair of the association, and Basil was the chair of the swimming club. And between them, I think they saw a lot of what it was about in the interview, but the help they gave me actually coming to the island and understanding the island life. I'd have been absolutely lost without those guys, you know. And there are a lot of people that have helped us both along the way on our Isle of Man journey, but those guys initially, you know, are still, as much as, you know, neither of them are involved directly with swimming anymore. I'll still catch up with them, go for coffee, and they want to know what we're doing. And I find it quite amusing. I still remind Clive, he sent me a list of the island records at the time. He said, we've just had our island champs, and these are the island records. See what you think. And I looked at them, and I was going, there was about 3 names on the sheet. There was a girl called Olivia Rawlinson. There was Charlotte Atkinson, who was just coming onto the scene then and just broken a load of records. There was Laura Kinley, held every breaststroke record there was. And on the men's side, there was Grant Halsall, who was I knew Grant because I'd worked with him on GB programs. And other than that, there was hardly anyone else on the list. And it was just like, are these the only swimmers? How many swimmers have you got? Are these the only ones here? And he said to me, oh, don't worry about those records, because nobody will ever go as fast on the men's side. Nobody will ever be as fast as Grant. So don't worry about them. And now I look back and I still remind them of and go, when I first come here, now you look at that sheet and the progression in the times and stuff, it's just, it's amazing to see, you know, on a percentage level, the drops have been amazing, been crazy, really.
So when you get that position, what would your typical day or week look like?
Well, my typical week in Isle of Man swimming world, we do Monday morning before school. That's 5:30 till 7. Monday night is 7:30 till 9 in the evening, the NSC. Tuesday night's appeal, we go an hour and a half there, 5:30 till 6. We do Wednesday mornings, Thursday night, double on a Friday, and then Saturday morning. So it's very much, it was almost the perfect structure to be able to build a business in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, and that was, like you say, I was given the green light from day one to do that. It was almost that you're going to have to create. I thought I was coming as a swimming coach to just coach the club. And then actually when it turned into, it's going to have to be a business, we're going to have to, that was when it became serious, you know. And like I say, there's a lot of admin stuff that goes on during the day behind the scenes. Probably do. I mean, my wife would tell you I'm on call 24 hours of the day, like. But there's a lot of admin. There's a lot of planning, and there's a lot of sort of meetings and, you know, meeting with sponsors, Isle of Man Sports, all of that sort of link work. You know, where with the development officer, that sort of work is all part of that. But like I say, it's still, I'm in a great position that I can do both.
Yeah,
and I've been very fortunate to be in that position.
So your own 9 beats, that's, you obviously take on private clients, teach from the basics, I guess, to people right at the top end.
Yeah. I mean, it started. It started as a couple of private lessons, and then sort of word got out that I was doing this, and then and somebody else said, well, I'd like to be coached by you. I'm doing this, or I'm doing, and before you know it, sort of word gets out and it snowballed. And we're at a point now where, you know, I have to be careful not to take on too much work, because just to find that work-life balance, because otherwise I could be working all day every day and work myself into the floor, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I think one thing that people think about Nine-Beat, they think, oh well, it's only for the real high level it's performance coaching, and do you know what? Some of it is, and some of it is definitely, you know, teaching people to swim. I've got private clients from the age of 8 and 9 through to one client who's approaching his 80s,
right,
and everything in between. And that's what I love about this place. That there are just everybody wants to be active. Everybody wants to do something.
Yeah.
And it's almost nice that there isn't much else happening on the Isle of Man. That activity seems to be the only way out. We haven't got loads of shops and pitches and bowling and all the sort of stuff that you'd see the kids in the UK doing. So activity, everyone does something on an activity level. If you find me someone on the Isle of Man and say, what exercise you do? Say, oh, we don't do anything. They'd be the weird ones.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, if you say, I'm going out on my bike for 2 hours, they look at you like you've got 3 heads. You know? Well, sorry, definitely not going out for 3 hours on my bike at the moment because we're on the path.
I don't know. Yeah, well, I was going to ask, because obviously we're down and locked down at the moment in regard to trying to swim. You know, that's I saw a video a couple of days ago of a high-level swimmer somewhere, and she got into her pool in the garden and put like a rope around her waist and was, I guess, held back so she could just practice the technique. There's not much you can do, really, is there, with swimming, other than maybe a bit of sea swimming, I guess, but I'm not sure what government would like you out there either, because they probably don't want to waste resources dragging your ass out of there if you get into trouble.
That's exactly it. I mean, one of my assistant coach, Sheila Parnell, she's big into open water swimming. She swam the Channel a couple of years ago and those sort of things. And she actually lives on behind King Bill's, and her daily routine used to be out the front door, over the road, and into the sea. And you know, she was saying, people saying, well, why don't you just do that? I said, well, you can't do that because you see one person there, before you know it, the beaches will be full. Yeah. And it's not one of the 3 things you're allowed to do. I mean, we're doing what we can to keep the athletes busy. You know, Isle of Man swimmers have suddenly discovered yoga because there's loads of yoga videos online for me to chuck at them. And myself and my wife have been developing, you know, land strength and conditioning videos that we've been putting out too. Now, I know it's one of those where there's every man and his dog's doing a workout video now. You know, Tyson Fury's doing them. I mean, you could get it from anywhere in the world. You could find these videos from, but actually to be doing stuff which we want them to be doing, which we know is going to be relevant to when we're getting back in the water, I think is an underrated opportunity that we can be putting the work out for these athletes. And we're also doing educational stuff as well. You know, putting out articles for them to be reading on nutrition and lifestyle stuff and all that kind of stuff. Just keeping the club together, really. Yeah,
and it keeps the mind ticking over as well, even if, again, I've seen bits where, and in fact, a friend of mine showed me stuff before where you can lie on like it's not meant those kind of yoga balls, and then attached like strengthening bands to the wall, and then kind of practice your strokes sat on the ball. And it's just, again, small things, but I guess it's part of that's just about keeping the mind ticking over, isn't it? And feeling not like you just sat doing nothing. I think
so. I think for me, it's more about keeping them busy and keeping them in love with the sport. Yeah. Keeping them. I said to when we sat down, when we got the word, we got the whisper that the pools were going to start closing and we were going to have to think. I said the one thing I want them to do is not go away and feel like, actually, I don't miss it.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing for me as a coach, is athletes not missing their sport.
Yeah.
I think there's a balance there. Now, not everybody wants to do something every day. Not everybody wants to do at the given time in the day or in the program. Some of them have got other things on. Some of them are still schooling at this stage as well.
Yeah.
So it's just about keeping them busy and keeping it fun, keeping it different.
Yeah, and you keeping engaged as the national coach, engaged with them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, let them know that it's almost more important to let them know that we're thinking about them and we care.
Yeah.
Than it is what work they're going to do, because they are going to lose a bit of fitness, but fitness comes back.
Yeah.
And if you can be doing things which will help that process be easier when time comes, when they say, right lads, we're back in.
Yeah.
As long as they're keeping on top of their strength, their core work, whatever it might be, to allow them to keep be able to hit the road running, if you will.
Yeah. It's just I suppose minimising the impact. So when they hit the pool again, it's everyone's gonna have the edge taken off them, aren't they? But just trying to minimise that. So when you're personally training, say an Ironman athlete to a triathlete to someone who does 400 meters, obviously that ultimately one's very endurance. Do techniques change within that process? Do you perhaps for longer distance you try and I don't know, but slow the stroke down so it's more efficient, I guess, maybe because it's going for longer? Or
I think it depends on the athlete. I think it depends on the background, what they've come from. I coach 3 people that are doing Ironman at the moment, and they're almost extremes on they could be a chart of this type of body shape, and that type of body shape, and everybody needs something different. Right. I know you spoke to George, George Blackwell a little while back, and obviously I work with George on his swimming, and because he's so heavily muscled, we need to the challenge is to keep him on top of the water. Whereas somebody who can sit well in the water, then that's about bringing the stroke rate down. Whereas someone like I've got a triathlete called John McGowan. He's very, very light, so he sits nicely in the water anyway. So actually, he works much better at a higher rate. So just keeping the arm stroke ticking over. Even a question about things like, should I kick or not? Say, well, it depends how good your kick is. If you're using your leg kick and you're burning energy like it's going out of fashion and it's not making you much faster, then stop it. You don't need to.
That's the one thing I found when I started to learn to swim at the end of last year was, again, I assume as a cyclist I'd have a strong kick, but as my mate told me, whether he's right necessarily, I guess he is the legs are the biggest muscle in the body. So if you're kicking endlessly, you need to slow that kick down, because you're just going to run out of breath, which I was basically doing after a length or two, but kicking too hard. So it's just learning to kind of flutter kick, I think was his terms he used with me.
Sure. I mean, what you've also got to remember is, especially in Ironman, it's not so much in the pool-based swims. So I know there are triathlons where you're actually in the pool for the swim. Yeah. And that is basically an up and down, follow the blue line. You're not really going to have to worry about changing
where you're going. Yeah, it's a directional thing.
That sort of stuff. But when you're in the open water, there might be a point where you're approaching a buoy, you're approaching a turn, and you're in a pack, and as you get to that buoy, everyone's just going to go over the top of you. Now, if you've got no change in pace, there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to get. So if you can turn that kick on and it's going to make you faster, and you can give me a burst of, let's say, a 10 metre in or a 10 metre out of that turn, then you're in safe water then. Or exiting the swim, you've got to climb out. I've seen that so many times where there's 20, 30 people trying to get out at once and they're climbing over each other. Grabbing the back of the wetsuit and goggles and hats come off and everything. And you think, if you had that little bit of a burst, that burst of speed to clear the pack, to get out in fresh water, you're away from all of that.
Yeah,
And like I say, there's different parts to the swim. There's the long and steady stuff, but actually, to have the fast stuff as part of a weapon in your arsenal, let's say, that makes such a difference to how you'll survive the swim.
No, absolutely. So, first of all, I apologise now. Having set up my Zoom in the garden thinking it was the greatest idea ever, my neighbour's now mowing his lawn. So, apologies if listeners can hear that. I'll try and mute when I'm not talking. So just then going back to the question around, obviously, for the Ireland and representing the Ireland over those, or being the coach over the last, or being involved for the last 9 or 10 years, gone to Commonwealth Games. So, I presume a lot of Ireland games as well. So, talk about maybe 2 of the kind of highlights of those for yourself.
Wow, that's a good question. Commonwealth, I was at Glasgow Commonwealth Games and the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. The Commonwealth Games was an absolute. It was just like nothing. There aren't even the words to explain what an amazing experience.
And can I ask then, just out of interest then, not to put you on the spot, but that, going back to your tracksuit comment earlier, do you find that similar now with the Isle of Man when you get that opportunity to, I mean, both Matty and I have represented the Isle of Man, and probably not, my memory's so poor, but I do remember having the kit and being proud, that same proud moment again that maybe Mark talks about, maybe at a different level to an All Black, but that same pride. Do you still get that as a coach?
I do, because it's well, for me, but it's also for my athletes, for my guys, and like you say, that also, it comes at different stages, like, because swimming is a time-based qualification system. So if you've got to hit the qualifying time, but if you get the qualifying time, you pretty much know you're on your way. Or that's how it's been in previous games. If you get that qualifying standard, so you'll see an athlete actually swim the time they needed to go to get to the games, and it's like they know that they're pretty much they've got one foot on the plane by then. That's an amazing experience, an amazing feeling, because you've helped them do that. You've assisted, and it's a joint venture. This, with the planning and all that. But myself, when I put an Ironman tracksuit on, knowing we're going to a Commonwealth Games, or the best anecdotal story I can give you is at Ireland Games. I'd like to think we might be in this position one day at the Commonwealth Games, but at Ireland Games, when one of our athletes wins, we have to sing the national anthem. And I remember the first time that happened, it was in Bermuda. I'd only been on the island about 2 months, and then they said, "Oh, you're going to have to spend 2 weeks in Bermuda." I was like, "Oh, what a terrible shame that is." And I got to the Bermuda Games, and it was great. It was all very, oh, this is good, isn't it? This is nice. And I'm on my holidays. And then one of our athletes, I think it was Grant Alsall, actually won. And the team manager at the time, Laney Cool, come running round the poolside to me, to the coaching area, and stuffs a piece of paper in my hand. And I looked at it and thought, what's this? She said, that's the words to the national anthem. And I went, what do you mean? She said, You've got to sing. And I went, are you kidding? I said, it reminded me when I went to church as a kid, and you've got the words and you can hear the tune, but you don't know how the words fit the tune. I didn't have a clue. It must have, if anyone had filmed me singing it, it must have been horrendous. But what an experience that was. And now I know the words off by heart. I remember in Gibraltar, the last gold medal that swimming won to win the overall competition. It was the last relay of the games, and one of our lads, Alex, who was the captain of the team, his mum is an incredible singer, and they actually got her off the balcony down to sing the national anthem over the mic.
Oh wow!
Oh my! I was crying. I was literally bawling. It was beautiful. But yeah, so there's been some really proud moments for a number of reasons, on a coaching level, for my athletes, and also for the nation. I feel like I'm I never thought when I got here that I could feel this passionate about somewhere other than England and other than Liverpool. But you know what? I can't imagine it being any other way now.
It is very. Ireland is very. I'm seeing, I suppose, more than ever now with what's going on. That community feel about it. It's nice to have it even more ramped up than it normally is. So I've got a few general kind of. We touch on psychology quite a bit in the podcast, generally around sport, and something I was reading online that I think it was on the Isle of Man swimming about certainly in swimming when the pain kicks in and you want to give up. I think it was a quote from yourself. It talks about your tank not necessarily being empty and therefore keep pushing through that pain. So it goes back something to when we were chatting to Sam Murphy, which I think it might be an off-air or before, but he also talks about when you're doing training, and I applied it to cycling, where you might do 5 intervals of 5 minutes, and it's that last interval where you go harder and your heart rate ends up higher than any other intervals, and your kind of instinct is, well, it's because it's the 5th one and I'm tighter than I was when I started. But I think he talks about, and he gave it a name, where basically you've been holding back on the other intervals, and again the psychology around that. So when I read that quote, that quote by yourself about just sort of pushing through that pain barrier, is that something I guess common in swimming?
Not common enough from a coach's perspective. As a swimmer, probably too common. I understand why people. It's not human to want to hurt. It's not the way we're made. It's not the way. And I always say to my athletes, how in a race are you gonna know what too hard is unless you've been too hard in training? We don't want to get to the race day and go out too hard and blow up. And I'm sure you guys have been in races like that yourselves, where you put too much in at the front end and you think, I'm not going to finish this. I'm not going to, someone shout a lifeguards sort of thing. I get that, but I don't think it's a case of you're not going too hard, or you've not gone out hard enough. I think it's just a case of, like you say, it is more psychology on a convincing yourself that doesn't, I have one of my stock phrases, and my swimmers will laugh when I say this, but PBs don't air for long. And if you cross that line and it doesn't matter how much it's hurting. I knew when I was racing, the last 15 metres I wouldn't be able to feel my arms, but I fucking knew they were spinning. Do you know what I mean? Because I knew that I had to get my hand on that wall, and that was all that mattered, even though I couldn't feel it because it hurt that much. You look at that wall and it says number 1, you forget it's sore. You forget how much that hurt. You remember the next day. Yeah. When you can't get out of bed. And but at the same time, we do a lot of training around that, and I think that was the difference when I came to the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man's training systems before Holland were very much about meters. They were very much about doing gradual improvements, and every time you go in and race, you might swim 100th of a second PB, but you'd swim a PB every time you went. And then we started to change that, so there would be times in the season where we don't need them fast, where we don't need to be swimming PBs and breaking records, and they would be absolutely broken because we'd gone so hard and so much quality. But then actually, when you rest them up out the other side of that, there was bigger. So they were knocking huge lumps off PB times and records, and we do that in training. We say number 1 is everything you've got, and then number 2, swim number 2 is hang on, and the rest of them, and we do a set of 9 lots of 50 metres where it's only 50 metres at a time. The first 3 you get 2.5 minutes rest, and you go everything you've got absolutely balls out to kill these first 3 50s and produce as much lactate as possible, as much lactic acid as you can. And then the next 3, I said, I'm not going to time these because the times don't matter anymore, because if you've done the first bit hard enough, these times are going to drop off so badly, but it's about learning and teaching your body how to keep going, you know. And you know, I'll write little notes next to it. So the first 3 say, "No crying." The middle 3 will say, "You're probably crying," and the last 3 say, "Why aren't you crying?" You know, or "Try not to be sick," you know, that sort of thing. But like you say, it is. It's more psychological than physical. Your head will give up 1,000 times before your body does.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, it is. So, what's the when you're looking at swimmers, and I guess it might vary, but what's the kind of peak age for certainly Olympic level type athletes, and are they different for men and women?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's changing as we're moving on, and sports science is getting better. You know, we're not just looking at mileage on the bodies making the best athletes anymore. We're looking at who's doing the right things, who's doing the right lifestyle, making the right lifestyle choices, and training well with the right sports science backup and all that sort of thing. So it is getting later, but we're still seeing the females sort of late teens, early 20s being where they're really coming into their own, and, you know, going up to about 25. And I'd say that the men are probably about 4 or 5 years later than that. So the men are going in and sort of coming onto the scene at early 20s, 23, 24, and swimming up to probably the age of 30, maybe a little bit longer than that. And obviously there's exceptions to that rule, but that seems to be the way the trend's going. It's getting later. And I would definitely put that down to the fact that there's not as much mileage on the bodies. You know, it used to be a case that if you were doing 70, 80,000 metres a week in the pool, you know, people would get to 21 and they'd be going, "Do you know what, I don't need this no more. My shoulders are both knackered, my hips and knees are knackered. Mentally, I don't want to do this no more." And that's where I think that the sport's changing now, you know.
It is a fine balance again. When we talked to Keith Gerrard, he talked about towards the end of his career that, you know, injuries from running was just more and more common because of the, you know, he believes just a pound and year on year. Not saying he never said he did too much, but ultimately it's an impact. You know, whatever sport you're doing, it takes its impact. So if you can minimise the impact, well, without trying to lose too much quality, then it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Then you're going to recover quicker, which means next time you train, you're going to be training more effectively and efficiently. And it seems like I suppose that's why people get into the overtraining issue of doing too much and then going tired, and then training becomes less productive, and the circle goes the other way.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's the fact that I think that's the reason why the times are moving forward as well. I mean, I find that I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to swimming times. I can recall, you know, what the 100 backstroke was won in at the 2000 Olympics as opposed to 2004, and the way that those times have progressed. Whereas now, you look at the times that the swimmers on the Isle of Man are swimming, they would have been, you know, that would have been, and we laugh about it and go, that would have been an Olympic final in 1986. Would have been an Olympic medal in 1976 or whatever it might have been, you know. And I do think it's the sports science is playing a much bigger part in making sure people are doing the right stuff. You know, and that overtraining is a big part of it in every aspect, but certainly the open water and the tri guys, Ironman athletes, that sort of thing, that people think they just want to go in and just batter it, you know. And it's like, actually, no, you'd be better off going in and doing small chunks of really, really good technical stuff to teach your body the right way of doing it, not just practicing bad habits over and over and over again. Yeah,
especially in those distance sports where endurance, and not only are they doing that hard swim session, they're then going out on the bike or then going for a run, and
Sure.
It's a fine balance. So I meant just to go back, because I meant to ask this a couple of times. The 9 beats, the name, is that the 9 beats? Is that some kind of swimming?
Yeah, it derives from a swimming term around the leg kick. A leg kick, when you're absolutely kicking like mad, in swimming we call that a 6-beat kick. It's supposed to be 6 kicks to one arm cycle. So from the right hand entering to the right arm, going through the full cycle and entering again. If you can get 6 kicks in within that stroke cycle, that is what's considered the most kicking you can do.
Okay.
Some would argue maybe you could get up to 8, some of the best kickers in the world, but it's a sort of an accepted term. I want a 6-beat kick on this set. And when I come to the Isle of Man, I cracked a joke when I first come. I went, well, you lot, I suppose, I asked for the 6-beat kick, and I said, well, I suppose you lot should be 9, shouldn't you? Because you've got 3 legs. and do you know what? I thought it was hysterical. I was absolutely killing myself laughing. I'm my biggest fan when it comes to me stand-up comedy. Like. And the swimmers all just went like that. Oh, you're joking. Just like, oh, Lee, that's like a proper dad joke. But it stuck.
All right.
And I said, you know what?
I'm going with that.
That's what we'll have. And they were, at the time, the swimmers couldn't believe that I'd chosen 9 beat as a name. But actually, it tickled me that much. And they were like, I can't believe you're laughing at your own joke this much. They were like, well, you know.
And now you need to come after it.
It stuck from that,
So important questions following on from that, and important subjects. So Olympics, Commonwealths, do they have lifeguards around the pool while these events are going on?
They do.
Do they?
Do.
Right, okay.
I quite often get tagged in a meme on Facebook, and it's, you think your life's not going anywhere. Just imagine being a lifeguard at the Olympics, you know. But actually, at the Commonwealth Games in Gold Coast, we actually got talking to we had a lifeguard at each of the stations, and we got quite friendly with them. And it's such a big, especially in nations like Australia, they do so much. They run the centres, and they were a big part in the actual running of the of the competition.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, they do have although I've never seen a lifeguard have to get in at a competition like that. Yeah. Seen a few at like Manx Youth Games where the kids got halfway and swallowed some water and that.
Yeah. Probably me, that would be. And then the other one was I'm still surprised like Phelps hasn't come out with like a headphone range, because every time the swimmers come out for competitions, they're always wearing big headphones. I assume there's something behind that.
Do you know?
Just getting in the zone.
It's just a getting in the zone, and the thing is with swimming, I'd liken it to, you know, when you see the football teams waiting to come out in the tunnel, and they're stood next to one another, and you see them dead focused, dead ahead. Don't look at the other player, because then he's getting in your head. Well, before a swimming race, you'll sit in a call room, and you basically all sat in that room, and you see every different style of personality. Like Chad Leclos, the South African fly swimmer who famously beat Phelps in the 200 fly, he's a real extrovert, and he talks to everyone, and he's, whether or not he's chatting shit or he's just like, hey, what did you have for your breakfast?
Yeah.
And then there's other guys that are just like, no, I just want to be in my own space. So I've got my earphones, I can shut my eyes, and I can go through the race, whatever it needs to be. I think it's like when you're at the gym. If you wear the little headphones that go in your ears, people still come talking to you. And it does my head in, because I'm like, I'm listening to my music here. Whereas if you've got them great big headphones on, it's like, you can't hear me, so I won't bother. I think that's what it is. But they've all got, I mean, I know a few of the big names. They've all got big brand sponsors on the headphones. Whether it's Bose or whether it's Beats or whoever it is, they're all using. I don't think they're using their favourite brand. They're using the ones that they're told to wear.
Yeah. It's just something I always notice. They're always got the headphones on. But like you say, it's getting into their headspace, isn't it?
Sure.
So on the island, people want to get involved in, appreciate perhaps not right now with swimming, with anything, but how do people how best people, you know, whether they've got kids want to get involved in, or they're a bit older and they want to start learning to swim or getting involved, clubs, etc. Where's the places to go and get information? And
well, what I'd say first, the way people normally come to me as Isle of Man's head coach, they would come through the local clubs on a normal day. They will be a member of one of the 4 feeder clubs, i.e. Douglas Swimming Club, Southern Swimming Club, Ramsey Swimming Club, or Peel Swimming Club. And the coach, I work closely with the coaches of each of those clubs, and they'll say, I've got a talented 9-year-old who's doing this, this, and this. Can you come and have a look at them? That's one way. So I'd say if you're already part of a swimming club, speak to your coach.
Yeah.
But I would guess that the coaches are already monitoring that sort of those athletes that they're earmarking for moving on. If you wanted to get into the sport, I would say that's the best way of getting in touch. Go into the club, because you have to be part of the club to go through one of those 4 pillars into Isle of Man swimming. But one thing we're looking at doing this season, and obviously we've been scuppered with the coronavirus, but we're actually looking at getting out into the schools and doing a bit of talent spotting. When I was at Salford, I worked with a program which Steve Redgrave was running to find the nation's next rowers, and they went in all of the inner city schools and found basically, I would have been perfect for it, but it was 10 years too late. The big kids with the long arms, long legs. And I had a cracking kid. She was 12 and she was nearly 6 foot tall.
Wow.
And I was looking at this kid going, this girl is going to be a very good swimmer. And Steve Redgrave come in, and he'd actually highlighted her as this potential amazing rower. And he came to me personally and said, look, I understand this girl's a good swimmer. He said, but I think she's got the potential to be an Olympian. Well, I said, do you know what? I said, if that's the case, I said, then you have it. I said, because if we've done and he said, you've done a lot of work towards this in terms of helping her with her aerobic capacity and turning her into an athlete. So we said, I want you guys, and not just me personally, I mean, City of Salford Swimming Club at the time, he put a big thank you in the paper about the swimmers that he turned into rowers. That girl's got an Olympic gold medal now.
All right, wow.
So we've talked about this, and we're actually we're going to look at doing something similar on highlighting and offering opportunities to a set of school children with all the weapons.
Yeah, the right attributes.
See if there's an extra way into the sport, because you look at the Isle of Man, they do growing big over there. I've got 6 lads in my top squad that are over 6.5 foot. There's some really, really big, strong kids. I think it's the fresh air. I stand around and I have to stand up straight because some of these guys are so big. I think, God, what we're missing out, and there's still such an untapped resource in that. So, like you say, that's something when the pools are open and the school swimming's back on, we're going to jump on that as well.
Okay, cool. Do you have any more, Matty, you want to cover off?
Couple. Do you feel more nervous as a competitor, or now you're coaching for your squad when you see them line up?
As a coach, and this is a conversation I've had a million times. When I go away to race, when we go away to race at a weekend, when I was a swimmer, I had to worry about 3 races. 3 races at a full stretch at a weekend. This time, if I can take 30, 40 swimmers away to a competition, if they all do 5 races, that's 200 races. And every one of them races, I'm in there with them. I'm jumping up and down. I'm that coach, the embarrassing one that's jumping up and down, shouting and screaming, and everyone else going, oh God, he's at it again. I can't help it. That's the way I am. We've actually looked at measuring my heart rate when my athletes are swimming, and it's nearly as high as theirs are, But yeah, that's I see that as a real. It's a positive. It's a treat for me to be able to. I can go away now. I can go away and swim 100 PBs in a weekend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because every one of those athletes, we've played a part in that, and that's something special. But yeah, I get so nervous for them on the big stage, because I want them to achieve their potential.
And that's it. A kind of follow-on question of there is, in terms of the style, is that you're very much happy to go through those emotions. You're not teach and let them do what they want. You want to be involved and go through those emotions and the good and the bad with them. In that sense, do you feel that's from your philosophy of how you should be coaching in that sense? Not I'll tell them how to do it. It's up to them to kind of do. And if they win, great. If they don't, okay, that's what happens. Or from what I gather with you, it's very much, if they win, you win. And if they don't, you also don't, sort of thing as well, which kind of shapes how you approach certain people in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really tough question, because there's what my heart says and what my head says, and what I should be telling you is I should be letting them do it because it's only a job, and I could tell myself that 100 times a day, every day. I'll never ever get away from that, because you can't do this as only a job. You are psychologically, emotionally invested in this sport, in these athletes. We've worked too fucking hard for it not to be. Do you know? Excuse me, I'm sorry. You put too much in on every level, and I look at these. I mean, we've not got kids, but I look at these young people like they're my. I like to tell myself I'm not quite old enough to be their dad, but I really am. But I like to see it as like a big brother role and protecting them and making sure that they're all right. And there's a lot of that on a sort of a mental well-being and a mental health level that I'm dealing with athletes that when things are going great, they're great. But actually, do you know what? Overall, I want to know that they're okay. And winning doesn't happen every day. Improvement can, and doing things well can, but it doesn't always mean you're going to win, because you might just end up next to the lane next to the world record holder, And it's being mindful of that. And whilst, of course, we want them to win, because I want that for them, I think that old saying of I can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself. But I do have to take a step back most days at some point and go, actually, I need to rein this in a little bit, because if I let my emotion run away with me, I'd end up in a dribbling mess in the corner, I think.
Yeah, that well-being of athletes is, I'm sure, coming more and more into sort of your roles of, certainly over the last 10, 15 years, so much more part of that role.
Yeah, I mean, working with teenagers is frightening at the best of times. But like you say, that you're not just a swimming coach. You're a mentor. You're a teacher. You're a counsellor. And that can be, it can be swimming related. It can be non-swimming related. It can be, Lee, I'm really upset about my swim at the weekend, all the way through to Lee, my girlfriend's finished with me. What am I going to do? And all of those different parts. It's part of working with young people, and like you say, it's a tough role to do, but at the same time, it's a lovely role to have, and it's a privilege to be able to work with young people and be able to shape young people. And that's why, I said earlier about I've got a lad who's now training to be a lawyer. I've got paramedics and doctors and stuff, people that I've spent time with that are now qualified in. They're changing, and in this time, in this last few weeks alone, these kids are changing the world.
Yeah.
And they'll ring you up and say, do you know what? What we did together as an 11 and 12-year-old taught me the discipline to move this forward, or taught me time management, or whatever it might be. I still look back and go, actually, stuff I learned in the pool about how to train, or I thought I was learning about how to train and how to swim fast, I was actually teaching myself life, or being taught life skills, respect, discipline, all of those things. It's a lovely position to be in, but at the same time, it can be very challenging, and trying to guide these young people through a bloody scary time, really. Teenage years anyway are just, I wouldn't pay as much as we all wish, I wish I was younger, I wouldn't go back to them days because it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a really interesting point actually you made there about those life skills and what you learn out of sport. It's so true and often easily forgotten as well, I think.
Sure.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time today. It's been very insightful.
Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure. From being a Manxie myself, maybe Manx, I think I am. We appreciate the come-overs to help develop our sport on the Isle of Man and become one of ours. So thanks. And like I say, thanks for advice today as well. I think that'll hopefully help some of the listeners out as well. If people want to reach out, I appreciate National Coach Help, but obviously you've got your own coaching. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Easiest way is email. Number 9 beat swimming at gmail.com, or Facebook. We've got an IMB page, or you can just get me via my own Facebook. People get in touch with me anyway, or just shout at me at a pool somewhere. Just go, hey, you. The scouts at the pool with 190 heart rate. You're looking for him. Yeah. The fella jumping up and down at the end of the pool because his kids aren't swimming fast enough. Yeah.
Telling his 9-beat jokes to strangers.
That's right.
Cool. Thanks again. Appreciate your time, mate.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to sign us out?
Yeah. So wherever you're listening or hopefully watching of us today, like, subscribe, share, and leave those 5-star reviews, pretty please. Social media on Facebook, the N-Word Podcast, Twitter, Manx Sports Pod, and on Instagram, we are the N-Word IOM.
Thanks again for listening, letting us get into your ears. It's word out from Martin.
And word out from Matt.